I want to welcome everybody to the Banking and Consumer Affairs Subcommittee on this beautiful Wednesday, March the 26th. Appreciate everybody being here. We've got guys and apparently girls that have got bills that they've got to run in and out. So we're going to try to get started as quick as we can. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
You have 4 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any personal orders here before we get started? Chairman Vaughn, you're recognized.
I got pictures of my grandbaby after she had surgery today, and all is well. So I'm very appreciative.
And I'll take a little privilege here. Last week I didn't get a chance to thank Chairman Vaughn, but the banking, we only got 7 members, and I was having to be gone week before last. And everybody knows that Commerce, which Chairman Vaughn is the chairman of, it's right behind Yellowstone in viewings that they're running neck and neck. So y'all got a glimpse when he had to chair banking, and I appreciate him filling in for me. With that said, we're going to jump right in. A couple of house cleanings. Off notice on agenda number 2, House Bill 316 is off notice. On number 3, House Bill 420 is also off notice. And House Bill 1132 is also off notice. And with that said, we're going to jump around a little bit because folks have got to present bills in other committees. Let's see here. I know it. Yeah. Chairman Vaughn, if you're ready on House Bill 0905, please enlighten us. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill has to do, you remember last year we passed the Elvis Act and we had all the performers in, and it was really enlightening with regards to what AI can do and what the concerns about how AI is affecting people's name, image, and likeness. Their ability to protect that. And so what has happened since then is there have been other users in the space, notably some of the larger tech companies that saying, hey, maybe that bill there might be some wordsmithing and linguistic twists put on it as technology continues to evolve.
And I hate to interrupt, Chairman, but you got a couple of amendments with this?
Yes, sir. The one that I'd like to consider is Amendment 6074.
Motion.
Second.
And if we could go ahead and attach it, that'd be great.
Yes, sir. 6074 is properly attached. And, yes. All in favor of attaching Amendment 6074, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed? Chairman, you're properly before us.
Thank you, sir. And given the late hour of this committee, and I know the desire to get this committee closed today, and we all share that, we've got a complicated bill at this point. It's amazing how a few words can get lawyers really riled up, going back at each other with regards to it. What I would ask is as we look at this, we've got a new definition of voice. There's some other things in here with regards to trying to figure out how this Elvis impersonators is one of the things that some people are concerned about. But this is going to take some time, and in order to be fair to both parties in this, because there will be protagonists and there will be antagonists with regards to this. I would ask the committee's indulgence, the subcommittee's indulgence, since this is the last meeting, if they would allow us to move this bill to full and give the parties 1 week to see if everybody can sing Kumbaya and come to the table. And if there is not full agreement on the terms of it, then I would not calendar it for full, Mr. Chairman, and I would refer it back to this subcommittee if there becomes disputes in the future, but only because of the late timing of the calendar. That's what I'd like to do with this if it meets the body's if it addresses any concerns y'all might have. I would think that, like, again, I'm looking for full consensus. If it's not there, then we will be back at it next year.
Any discussion on the bill? I think we're ready to vote. Mr. Clerk, will you open up the vote?
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 ayes, 0 noes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. House Bill 905 will go on to commerce for next week.
I appreciate the committee's consideration.
Let's see here. Boso. Now we'll jump back right back into our calendar here. Agenda 1, House Bill 0145. Got a motion and a second. Mr. Boso, have you got, is there amendments with this? Which one are we looking at?
Looking at Amendment 6436.
All in favor of adding 6436 to House Bill 0145, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Chairman, please discuss your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the committee. This is a bill that seeks to deal with the effects in Tennessee of unlawful immigration, and it does so in 3 distinct respects. First, it defines certain terms that have been used over the decades in our code, such as resident of this state, resident of the state, citizen of the state, or citizens of this state, to refer to those who are lawfully present in the state, either because they are citizens of the United States or they are aliens lawfully present in the state. Obviously, over the years, when this body has used those terms hundreds of times, it had in mind and contemplated laws that were to affect those who are here lawfully. The laws that we enacted that provided benefits to residents and citizens were benefits that were entitled to those lawfully here, either as U.S. citizens or as aliens lawfully present. So the first thing the bill does is it specifies that those terms as used in the code refer to aliens lawfully present in the state or to U.S. citizens. The second thing it does is an attempt to demagnetize Tennessee as a destination for those who are in the country and in the state illegally. And it does it this way. We know from our Department of Financial Institutions that every year there's more than $5 billion that is transmitted electronically out of the state to foreign countries. And what this bill does, HB 145, is it requires retail locations when they are conducting an in-person money transmission from the state of Tennessee outside the country to verify the lawful immigration status of the customer. It applies just to those who are in person, and it does not apply to transmissions that are handled entirely electronically online. It also it provides that it's essentially a pilot project for 2 years, so we can actually see and study what the effects of this new law is on Tennessee before we make it a permanent part of our code. And then third and finally, the law seeks to undo one of our erroneous U.S. Supreme Court precedents back from 1982 in the Plyler versus Doe decision, where we had a U.S. Supreme Court by a vote of 5-4 strangely interpret the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to hold that, in that case, Texas, but literally all 50 states are obligated to provide a free public education to children of anyone anywhere in the world who comes into the country illegally. That is a precedent that was erroneously decided and is one that we seek to call into question with the third part of this bill. What the third part of the bill does is that it requires LEAs, or other school districts, of which we have 147 across the state, to charge parents who are in the country illegally the same tuition for their children to be educated in our public schools that would be paid by out-of-county residents. In other words, if you were a resident of Davidson County and you wanted to enroll a child in Williamson County, our Title 49 allows that, but you have to pay tuition at an out-of-county rate, which across the state normally varies from around $2,000 to $4,000 per year. The argument, of course, being very simple, that if we are actually going to charge parents who are lawfully in the state tuition to enroll their children in a school outside the county, then obviously it would make sense to charge that same rate to those who are not even in the state or the country legally who seek to enroll their children in the same public schools. And Mr. Chairman, that's an overview of what the bill does.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on the bill? Speaker Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative Bolso, let me understand this. If this child lives in Davidson County and they want to go to a Davidson County school, you're saying that they're not a legal citizen, that they've got to pay tuition, even though they live in that city. Is that correct, what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Essentially, yes, Speaker Marsh, that is correct. If the parents are not in the country legally and they reside physically in Davidson County, to enroll a child in Davidson County public schools, they would pay the out-of-county rate that Davidson County charges to students outside of Davidson County who are also residents of Tennessee.
Yes,
Could
sir.
they go to a school in Rutherford County and not pay this tuition? Would it be the same instance there?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Speaker Marsh, it would be. If you had a couple who were in the country illegally that's lived in Davidson County but sought to enroll a child in Rutherford County, if Rutherford County wanted to accommodate the child, they would charge tuition at the out-of-county rate that other Davidson County students would be charged.
Speaker.
Would they have to charge this tuition, or could they waive it if they so desired?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the language of this bill, they would have to pay it. The LEAs will have to charge it.
Thank you.
Speaker. Thank you. Yes. Representative Lynn, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regard to that portion of the bill, is that really the purview of this committee, or is there, or has this bill been to the Education Committee? Do we know, Mr. Chairman?
It's been referred after banking.
Oh, I
It's
see.
kind of a two-piece bill.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. And then in regard to the money transmitter portion, how would a retailer, what kind of proof would someone give to show that they were in this country legally? How would they do that?
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Lynn, by providing two forms of identification that are listed in Section 4 on page 2 of the amendment, we have a laundry list of different types of identification that could be used to verify one's lawful status in the United States, and anyone seeking to transmit money to a foreign country would simply need to provide two of those items.
Representative Lynn.
Thank you. And I just wanted you to state them for the record, if you would. And then my next question was going to be, how portable are these pieces of identification? Is it something that someone would ordinarily have on themselves all the time?
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the bill specifies that the following forms of identification could be used: a valid driver's license or photo from Tennessee, a valid driver's license and photo from another state, an official birth certificate issued by a state, a U.S. government issued birth certificate, a valid unexpired U.S. passport, a United States certificate of birth abroad certificate, a report of birth abroad of a U.S. citizen, a certificate of citizenship, that's an N560 or N561 form, a certificate of naturalization issued pursuant to the Federal Immigration and Naturalization Act, also a U.S. citizen identification card, which can be obtained from the federal government, or any of the successor to those documents that are authorized by the Immigration and Naturalization Act. And then finally, Representative Lynn, a social security number. So most of what I've gone over are obviously very portable. They're things that many people have with them at any time: driver's license, a passport, a certificate, a social security card, things of that nature.
Representative Lynn.
And so the retailer would, anybody who approached the retailer and said, I want to wire money to another country, the retailer would ask all comers for this ID, whether they were U.S. citizens or not, because oftentimes you can't tell. So they would be required to ask everybody for this ID.
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In essence, yes, no matter who the customer is, whatever customer that was seeking to conduct a money transfer electronically outside the state of Tennessee to a foreign country would have to provide two forms of identification.
And
Representative Lynn.
I think this is my last question,
No problem.
Mr. Chairman. It seems like you're just targeting retailers through this legislation. There are various apps that will transmit money, Venmo, different things like that. I personally will use Venmo from time to time. If I wanted to Venmo money to someone in another country, Venmo isn't, per this Tennessee law, would not be required to ask me for that ID, or how would that work?
Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Lynn, you are correct. Any Venmo or any other online money transmitter who's licensed under the Money Transmission Modernization Act, under Title 45, is beyond the scope of this bill.
Okay.
And that in part is because in order for you to have a Venmo account, you earlier had to provide identification to get set up. So for purposes of this bill, we are dealing simply with individuals who show up at a retail location having no prior affiliation or association necessarily as a customer with that retail location.
I do have one more question. I'm so
Representative Lynn.
sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
What I am wondering here is, I guess, two things. One, is this attempting to stop a crime? And two, just by means of incentives, if I am a person who wants to transmit money to someone in another country, I might not want the hassle of going to the retailer. So are we then disadvantaging our Tennessee retailers? I'm sure they don't perform the service for free. There's some fee for them in here. So are we then, perhaps pushing away all customers because of the inconvenience and pushing them to these apps on behalf of the apps, I guess, or, are we doing that? And then the first part of my question is, what are we trying to get at here? Is there a crime here or something like that you're trying to get at?
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me answer in three ways, if I might. Representative Lynn. First, in many respects, because of bank privacy laws, because of the Patriot Act, certain financial institutions, pursuant to the Know Your Customer rules, would already require certain forms of identification. This bill simply specifies that there are two that are necessary. So the inconvenience, if I could call it that, to someone is very slight, because for the most part, if you're dealing with somebody who's already subject to certain federal statutes and regulations regarding the Patriot Act and Know Your Customer laws, you are already going to be providing identification. Secondly, the issue of crime is an interesting one to raise, because obviously we know, and there's obviously been many public cases where you have criminal illegal aliens committing horrific crimes, not just in Tennessee, but with Laken Riley in Georgia and with others across the country. So to an extent, you could say that passing this legislation would have the effect of reducing crime, because reason number three is that the bill seeks to, if I can use this term, demagnetize Tennessee as a chosen destination for those who are in the country illegally. Because if we actually have certain laws in place that make Tennessee a place where lawful residents are very much welcome, but those who are not yet lawful residents need to deal with their illegal status in the country before they can live here, I think that does, in fact, not just reduce crime, but it provides respect for the rule of law and otherwise provides for an orderly society.
Any more discussion? Representative Hammer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Sponsor. Just curious, does your legislation target the employers or just the individuals that are sending this money through these services?
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Chairman Darby. It does not target employers in any respect. As you know, Representative Hemmer, employers already have available the E-Verify system through the federal portal to use the information provided on a Form I-9 to verify the lawful immigration status of a prospective employee, because it is and remains illegal for employers in Tennessee and elsewhere to hire those who are in the country illegally. But this bill itself is not directed in any way at the employment status.
Thank you. Upon looking at research from this legislation, I couldn't find any other states that had any similar type restrictions on these services. Is that correct?
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that it is not correct in the sense that there are other state legislatures, I believe Texas is one of them, that are currently deliberating over bills that deal with attempting to reverse Plyler versus Doe, and also to deal with money transmission. So although there may not be a statute in place with regard to either one of these two components, these are issues that are in deliberation by legislative bodies, not just here in Tennessee, but across the country.
Representative Hammer.
Thank you. I'll take that as a no. You're curious why, to follow up on Representative Lynn's comments, why other similar banking services like Venmo, Cash App aren't included in this bill. If the purposes is to tackle these transactions, why are they excluded versus the in-person services?
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned a moment ago in response to Representative Lynn, in order to access and use an electronic online means of transmitting money outside of the state, the user would already have had to go through some type of identification process with Venmo or PayPal or Cash App or any one of the other apps that one can use. This bill is targeted just at in-person money transmissions where there's been no prior relationship necessarily between the customer and the retail location.
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I guess I was curious to that because, I was looking at some news articles. For example, after Western Union had one of the largest money transfer systems, or it's one of the largest money transfer systems, was sued by the Arizona AG. They set up a nonprofit agency that created a track system that helps monitor these transactions. And it actually, because of this, and law enforcement and other states are able to plug into this, including federal police. They actually were able to capture 4.5 million fentanyl pills seized because of these systems. So I guess I'm wondering, why we would be, targeting companies that could actually comply with this bill and help cooperate with authorities to, catch crime at the border and prevent some of these criminal activities.
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wouldn't use the term target in any respect. We're not targeting any businesses in the state. What we are simply doing is making sure that in Tennessee, we have laws in place that reflect that we are a lawful state, and we welcome everyone who is lawfully present in the United States in our state. But to the extent that we have those who are not legally in the country residing in Tennessee, we want to set up a system of laws that make sure that we demagnetize Tennessee as a place that is going to be a likely chosen destination for those individuals.
Representative Hemmer.
Thinking in the practical sense of things, how this would work. Every time I've been in a grocery store and seen these services being used, or Western Union, et cetera, it's typically a grocery clerk is going back from behind the counter to do this, and now we're essentially putting an unfunded mandate and some regulation on them to turn them into immigration, immigration clerks, which is not fair. And as speaking from a former grocery sacker, I can attest I was not very up to the task of doing this type of things. I think it's these are typically lower wage, lower skilled labor, and we're asking to put some of this some activities on their job task list that particularly is not well suited for what we're trying to do. So that's one of the reasons I have an issue. The second, the education component is, I don't even know where to start. I think it's mean spirited. I think, we look at what is the American dream, what things we do to better our society, better the citizens, and that access to education is the paramount of that, and not to mention it's settled case law. So for those reasons, I won't be supporting your legislation. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Without objection, we're going to go out of session here. We've got a couple of three people that are wanting to speak. With that said, Mr. William Mendoza. He's not present. All right. And I'll butcher the name here. Giselle Huerta? Giselle? Yeah, please come up, state your name, your address, and yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And Ms. Huerta, you got 3 minutes.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Giselle Huerta from Hijos Emigrantes, translated to Children of Immigrants. And I'm kind of weirded out by my address. I've testified before and I didn't have to give my address.
Where are you from?
What do you mean where I'm from?
Are you from Nashville?
Yeah, I'm from Nashville.
Okay, that's
Born and raised here.
enough said.
Born,
Yeah,
okay.
enough said.
Okay. Okay. That really caught me off guard. So give me a second.
You got plenty of time. We won't start the 3 minutes till you do.
Good morning, Chairman. My name is Giselle Huerta from Hijos Emigrantes, translated to Children of Immigrants. I strongly oppose HB 145 as a former Tennessee public school student. I have been transformed by access to education and financial opportunities. 2 weeks ago, in the K-12 subcommittee, Representative Lampert stated every single Tennessean is paying for children, every single child that is in public schools, and he is correct. Undocumented immigrants who are Tennesseans pay taxes that contribute $720 million a year to Tennessee and tax revenue, to be exact. Immigrants contribute because we believe in taking care of our neighbors, students, and communities. When the government accepts taxes from undocumented individuals, it does not require proof of immigration status. In fact, undocumented families in Tennessee pay an effective tax rate of 8.4%, while the top 1% of wealthiest families pay an effective tax rate of just 3.6%. Playa versus Doe reminds us that depriving a child of education imposes a lifetime of disability. This opinion was not only shared by the people who voted in favor, but also those dissenting, saying taking education away from children was not a solution to the immigration problems we face. Additionally, this bill restricts financial access by requiring banks to verify immigration status before permitting money transfers. Tennessee already has one of the highest unbanked rates in the country, with 5.7% of the residents lacking a bank account. This bill would push families towards predatory check cashing services that charge high fees, making it harder for them to save, invest, and support their loved ones. HB 145 is not about protecting Tennessee's finances. It is about targeting children who want to learn and families that work hard every every day to contribute to the state. This bill demonstrates that some legislators would rather exclude people to help them and succeed. I grew up in Tennessee's public schools where my teachers viewed me as a student with potential, not just a status. If this bill passes, what kind of future leaders will we lose? What businesses might fail? How many families will suffer? Not because they didn't work hard, but because Tennessee choose to make their life more difficult for them. Tennessee thrives when its people thrive. Instead of creating barriers, we should invest in all students, ensure financial access for all, build a state where every child, every worker, every family has the opportunity to succeed. I urge you to reject HB 145. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Worthing, for being here. Appreciate the testimony there. Is there any questions? Representative Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to make clear, as the chairman said earlier, the purview of this committee, we are not the education committee. We're considering the money transmitter portion of the bill. And our colleagues who serve on the education committee, we trust them to vet the bill and to decide those matters. And then we take that vote on the floor if they pass that bill on. But thank you very much for your testimony. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your presence here.
Yep, thank you. We've got another witness here, Miss Ashley Warbington. If you would, just state your name and where you're from, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. My name is Ashley Warbington. I'm from Davidson County, and I have lived here since I was 3 months old. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. I sit before you today as a mother and the PTO president of my son's school, a Title I public school in Nashville where 56% of the students are Latino. My son is proudly bicultural, Mexican and American. And I hear your comments, Representative Lynn, but I do feel it's important to state that it is strange that we are here discussing public education in the Banking and Commerce Subcommittee, but that speaks to one of the biggest issues of this bill. It's trying to do too much at once. This bill doesn't just target children's access to education, it also burdens financial institutions with new immigration enforcement responsibilities. When a bill attempts to tackle multiple unrelated policies, it risks creating confusion, overreach, and unintended consequences. The bill attempts to redefine who Tennessee considers a resident, a dangerous precedent that opens the door to further exclusions. Who will we deem unworthy next? This redefinition isn't just about exclusion, it's about actively driving people away. This bill doesn't just harm undocumented children, it affects the classmates they've grown up alongside. It rips them away from their friends, schools, and the stability every child deserves. Parents will keep working because they must. These same parents pay taxes, that just the same amount of taxes that I pay as a U.S. citizen to fund these public schools. Yet their children will be left without education or supervision. This bill is fundamentally anti-child. It targets the most vulnerable among us, children, some as young as 5. It strips them of their right to a free public education, yet paradoxically, because of the recently passed voucher bill, the state will remain financially obligated to districts for any disenrollment this bill causes, actually costing the state money instead of saving it. I would think the banking subcommittee would be interested in that fact. This raises a critical question. If these students are forced to pay tuition, how will we ensure that districts don't also receive full state or local funding for the same student? And we just heard the sponsor state 4 times that he wants to demagnetize Tennessee, driving immigrants out. But he ignores a crucial truth. Immigrants are the backbone of our economy. They're workers, job creators, and entrepreneurs. Additionally, this bill doesn't just attack innocent children, it also targets their families' financial stability. As a former financial counselor with the Nashville Financial Empowerment Center, I helped unbanked families access free, safe banking options. The bill threatens that banking relationship and will require financial institutions to verify immigration status before international transfers can be made, and then maintain copies of that proof for 2 years. And we just heard some of that proof is sensitive information. So how will those documents be kept safe? This will force undocumented families to turn to predatory financial services. Many of you speak of faith and
Ms. Ashley,
family values.
I-
I'm almost done.
Go ahead.
which call us to love our neighbors, not just those with legal status. These children are a part of our community and deserve the same opportunities as their peers.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for our guests? Thank y'all for being here. Yep. We'll go back into session. Speaker Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll call the question on the bill.
All right. Proper motion there. Mr. Clerk, please set up the board.
Mr. Chairman, you have 2 ayes and 2 noes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. House Bill 145 fails for lack of majority.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
We're now ready for House Bill 0791. Representative Bain.
Where's Kelly? It's okay.
House Bill 0791 fails for lack of a second.
Thanks.
We'll move on. Representative Harris had emailed me. We've got to take it back. We're going to put it back on the clerk's desk, House Bill 1379 on the special calendar. And he will have a chance to appeal that. We're now ready for House Bill 1399. What do we do? We got one bill left here. We've got a question for Doug. So we'll take a two-minute recess here, and we'll be right back. We're back in session. Representative Hemmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to say what a grand job I thought you did as chair this year. I really enjoyed being on this committee. I'm now very astute in crypto and banking regulations and all things financial, thanks to your stewardship, and appreciate everything.
I appreciate that. I really thought I'd have about 2 weeks of sitting in this chair and then they'd see how bad I was going to do. They'd kick me to the curb, but it worked out all right. And with that said, do we have it's a proper motion? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Roll it. Yep. The sponsor's not here for our last bill. That's what we were waiting on, and sorry for the inconvenience. But $13.99.
Special calendar.
It just sits there. All right, we got a proper motion there to adjourn to the call of the chair. Thank y'all. Thank y'all.